Did I destroy my boyfriend's family Christmas over dirty dishes? I never imagined that adopting a kitten would be the first domino in destroying my boyfriend's family Christmas tradition. The apartment on Maple Street was supposed to be our fresh start. When my boyfriend and I moved in with his brother 2 years ago, it felt like the beginning of something wonderful. The three of us fell into an easy rhythm, sharing meals, laughing over terrible reality TV shows, splitting chores without any formal system because we all just did our part. His brother would tackle the bathroom every Sunday while humming off key to classic rock. My boyfriend handled the kitchen most evenings, and I kept the common areas tidy and managed the weekly grocery runs. We weren't just roommates, we were family. I remember the night we all stayed up until 3 in the morning assembling furniture from that Swedish store everyone loves to hate. His brother held the pieces steady while my boyfriend read the incomprehensible instructions, and I sorted the tiny screws and bolts into organized piles. We laughed until our sides hurt when we realized we'd built the bookshelf backward and had to start over. Those were the good days. The days when I couldn't imagine anything disrupting our peaceful little household. The apartment itself was nothing fancy. A third-floor walk-up with creaky hardwood floors and radiators that clanged mysteriously in the night, but we'd made it home. Plants lined the windowsills, photos covered the refrigerator, and the living room couch had a permanent indent from our movie marathons. My boyfriend's brother had a girlfriend, but she lived 6 hours away, and he'd visit her every few weeks. We'd wave him off with packed snacks for the drive and welcome him back with his favorite takeout. Life was simple, life was good. Then came the phone call that changed everything. His brother was in the kitchen making coffee when his phone rang. I was curled up on the couch with a book, barely paying attention, until I heard his voice rise with excitement. Really? You're serious? That's incredible. My boyfriend emerged from our bedroom, hair still messy from sleep, looking curious. His brother hung up and turned to us with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face. She got the job, he announced. She's moving here, next month. The joy in his voice was undeniable, and of course, we celebrated with him. How could we not? He'd been in a long-distance relationship for nearly 3 years, missing her constantly, racking up highway miles and video call hours. The thought of them finally being together full-time was beautiful. She'll need to stay here for a bit, he said, almost apologetically, just until we save enough for our own place. Maybe a few months? Of course, my boyfriend and I said in unison. We exchanged a glance, a whole conversation happening silently between us. We had the space. His brother had been nothing but considerate for 2 years. How could we say no? This is going to be great, I said, and I meant it. I'd met his girlfriend a handful of times during her visits, brief weekends where she seemed nice enough, if a bit quiet. We'd gone out for brunch once, and she'd seemed interested in getting to know me, asking about my studies and my job. I remembered thinking we could be friends. I had no idea I was setting a timer on a bomb. 3 weeks before she moved in, I made a decision that would later be weaponized against me in ways I never could have anticipated. I adopted a kitten. I'd been thinking about it for months. My boyfriend and I both grew up with cats, and our landlord permitted pets with a deposit. His brother had brought home an adult cat the year before, a dignified tabby who spent most of his time sleeping in sunbeams and occasionally gracing us with his presence. Everyone loved that cat. There were no objections, no concerns, no drama. So when I saw the listing at the local shelter for a 10-week-old kitten with huge green eyes and oversized ears, my heart melted. I showed my boyfriend the photo, and he grinned. Let's go meet her. The shelter volunteer placed the tiny ball of fur in my arms, and she immediately began purring, a sound like a small motor running in her chest. She kneaded her little paws against my sweater and looked up at me with complete trust. I was done for. What do you think? I asked my boyfriend. I think she's already chosen you, he replied, scratching behind her ears. We brought her home that afternoon, armed with supplies, litter box, food, toys, a cat tree that came in an impossibly heavy box. His brother came out of his room when he heard us struggling through the door. You got a kitten! He knelt down immediately, letting her sniff his fingers. His own cat wandered over, curious, but calm. They touched noses briefly, and while the older cat wasn't thrilled about sharing his territory, there was no hissing, no aggression, just the typical feline negotiation of boundaries. She's adorable, his brother said. What's her name? We hadn't decided yet, but watching her pounce on a stray piece of packing paper, we landed on something playful and fitting. She was ours, another member of our little family. For those 3 weeks before his girlfriend moved in, the kitten integrated beautifully into our home. Yes, she had the chaotic energy all kittens possess, attacking shoelaces, climbing curtains, zooming through the apartment at midnight, but she was also sweet and affectionate. The two cats had established a respectful coexistence, occasionally playing together, mostly ignoring each other. I was meticulous about her care. I set up her litter box in the shared laundry room next to the older cat's box, scooping both daily. I kept her toys contained to our bedroom as much as possible. I vacuumed constantly to manage the inevitable fur. I wanted to be a responsible pet owner, especially knowing we'd soon have another person living with us. The day his girlfriend arrived, I deep cleaned the entire apartment. Fresh sheets on their bed, space cleared in the bathroom cabinet, room in the coat closet. I even baked cookies, a welcome gesture, a way to say, we're happy you're here. She walked through the door with an enormous suitcase and a tired smile. The 6-hour drive had clearly worn her out. We helped carry her things to their bedroom, and I presented the cookies on a plate. Welcome home, I said warmly. She thanked me, but her eyes were scanning the apartment, landing on the kitten, who was sitting innocently on the back of the couch. Oh, she said, there's another cat now. Yes, we adopted her last month, I explained. She and your cat get along great. No issues at all. Something flickered across her face, an expression I couldn't quite read, but she nodded and smiled, and I pushed aside the weird feeling in my gut. The first week was fine. We all adjusted to the new rhythm of 4 people sharing space. She unpacked, set up her side of their bedroom, started her new job. We'd packed pass each other in the kitchen making breakfast, exchange pleasantries about our days, occasionally watch TV together in the evening. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something started to shift. It began with comments about the kitten. "Your cat was in our room again," she mentioned one morning, her tone light but pointed. "Oh, I'm sorry, did she scratch something? I can keep our door closed more," I offered immediately. "Just, she shouldn't be in there." I apologized again and made a mental note to be more careful. Cats are curious creatures, and with doors opening and closing, sometimes the kitten would slip into rooms. It seemed like a minor, manageable issue. Then came the broken picture frame. I was at work when I got the text. "Your kitten knocked over my picture frame and broke it. The glass shattered everywhere. This can't keep happening." My heart sank. I replied immediately with apologies, offered to replace it, asked if anyone was hurt. When I got home, I examined the scene. The frame had been sitting on a dresser near the edge, and yes, a curious kitten could have easily bumped it. I felt genuinely terrible. "I'm so sorry," I said in person. "I'll buy you a new frame this weekend, and I'll keep her out of your room completely. I'll make sure our door is always closed." "She needs to be trained," she responded. I blinked. "She's 10 weeks old. I'm working on training, but kittens are... If she's going to destroy things, she shouldn't be allowed out of your room." The word stung, but I swallowed my defensiveness. "I'll be more careful, I promise." From that day forward, I became hypervigilant. Our bedroom door stayed closed unless we were actively walking through it. I watched the kitten constantly when she was in common areas. I redirected her away from their bedroom door. I was exhausting myself trying to control a baby animal's every movement, but it didn't matter. Everything became the kitten's fault. Hairball in the hallway? Must be my cat. It wasn't. The older cat had digestive issues. Scratch marks on the couch arm? Obviously my cat. They'd been there before we adopted her. Noise at night? My cat running around. She slept in our room, and we could hear his brother's cat racing around. Every accusation came with the same tone. Not quite angry, but dripping with implication. I was a bad pet owner. My cat was a problem. I should do something about it. I started to dread coming home. 2 months after she moved in, I realized I was no longer comfortable in my own home. It's a strange feeling, that gradual erosion of peace. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no single dramatic moment where everything falls apart. Instead, it's 1,000 small cuts, tiny interactions that leave you questioning yourself, wondering if you're overreacting, trying desperately to keep the peace. I found myself changing my behavior in ways I didn't even consciously register at first. I started timing my showers for when she wasn't home, worried about taking too long or using too much hot water. I'd eat dinner in our bedroom sometimes rather than the kitchen, avoiding potential awkward encounters. I texted my boyfriend before inviting friends over, making sure it wouldn't cause an issue. I kept my belongings obsessively organized and out of common areas, paranoid about leaving anything that might be criticized. The atmosphere in the apartment had changed. What was once easy and relaxed now felt tense and complicated. My boyfriend noticed it too. "You seem stressed," he said one evening as we got ready for bed. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. He gave me a look, the one that said he knew I wasn't fine but wouldn't push if I didn't want to talk. I sighed. "It's just different now. With 4 people, I'm still adjusting." "She seems nice," he offered, though his tone was uncertain. "Yeah," I agreed, because what else could I say? She hadn't done anything overtly wrong. She was polite in conversation. She said please and thank you. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but underneath there was something cold, something that made me feel unwelcome in the home I'd lived in for 2 years. The breaking point, or what I thought was the breaking point, came 3 months after she moved in. I'd been at school all day, exhausted from back-to-back classes and a shift at my part-time job. I came home to find the kitchen counter covered in dried barbecue sauce. Not just a small spill, streaks and drips and crusty patches that had clearly been there for hours, maybe days. The sink was full of dishes with more sauce crusted on them. The trash was overflowing. I stood there, backpack still on my shoulders, staring at the mess. My boyfriend came up behind me. "Oh, wow. Did you?" I started to ask. "No, I worked a double shift yesterday and left before dawn this morning. I haven't cooked in 3 days." We both knew whose mess it was. His brother and his girlfriend had hosted a few friends for dinner 2 nights ago. We'd been out, avoiding the social gathering because the girlfriend had made a comment about how crowded the apartment felt when I had people over. "Should I just clean it?" I asked quietly. My boyfriend's jaw tightened. "No, they need to clean up after themselves." But hours passed, and the mess remained. His brother came home from work, glanced at the kitchen, and went to his room. The girlfriend emerged later to grab a snack, stepping around the dishes, seemingly unbothered. I lasted until the next morning. I couldn't stand it anymore. The smell, the stickiness, the sheer disrespect of leaving a shared space in that condition. I cleaned everything, scrubbing dried sauce off the counters, washing all the dishes, taking out the trash. When my boyfriend found me finishing up, he looked frustrated. "You shouldn't have done that." "Someone had to. Now they'll never learn." He was right, but I couldn't function in filth. That day, I started keeping a mental tally. Not because I wanted to. I hate the idea of scorekeeping in relationships, but because I needed to understand if what I was feeling was justified or if I was being unreasonable. Over the next 3 months, a pattern emerged with stark clarity. His brother and his girlfriend cooked elaborate meals several times a week, leaving behind mountains of dishes and food-splattered surfaces. They'd use every pot and pan, every utensil, and somehow never manage to load the dishwasher. They'd leave empty containers in the fridge, creating science experiments. They'd spill things and not wipe them up. They'd track mud through the hallway and leave their shoes scattered by the door. And they'd do virtually nothing to clean any of it. No sweeping, no mopping, no wiping down surfaces, no taking out the trash unless it was literally overflowing onto the floor, no running the dishwasher or putting away clean dishes, no vacuuming, no bathroom cleaning, nothing. Meanwhile, my boyfriend and I were drowning. We were both full-time students working part-time jobs. Our schedules were brutal. Early classes, late late shifts, homework until midnight, and yet we were doing probably 90% of the household maintenance. I tried to tell myself it was temporary. Maybe she was overwhelmed with her new job. Maybe his brother was stressed about something. Maybe they just didn't notice the mess the way I did. But 6 months in, I couldn't justify it anymore. The girlfriend was home most of the time. Her job was remote, so she worked from their bedroom. She'd be there all day, every day, with ample opportunity to contribute to the household. But the broom never moved from its spot in the closet when she was the only one home. The dishwasher sat full of clean dishes for days until my boyfriend or I emptied it. The bathroom trash would overflow with her cotton pads and makeup wipes, and she'd simply stack more on top. His brother, who used to be so helpful, had regressed into teenage levels of messiness. It was like having his girlfriend there gave him permission to stop trying. He'd leave his work boots caked with dirt by the front door, his jacket thrown over the couch, his facial hair trimmings scattered around the bathroom sink. I felt myself getting angrier. Angrier than I wanted to be, angrier than seemed proportional to dishes and dust. But it wasn't really about the chores. It was about respect. It was about feeling like we were being taken advantage of. It was about coming home exhausted and being greeted by someone else's mess, someone who'd been home all day and couldn't be bothered to spend 15 minutes contributing to the space. My boyfriend was getting frustrated too. We'd vent to each other in our room, speaking in hushed tones so we wouldn't be overheard. "I'm tired of being the only one who cleans the bathroom," he'd say. "I cleaned the kitchen 3 times this week," I'd reply. "Should we say something?" "I don't know, I don't want to start drama." But the resentment was building, and we both knew eventually something would have to give. The tipping point came on a Sunday afternoon in early October. I'd spent the morning finishing a research paper that was due Monday, hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table because our bedroom was too dark and cramped for proper focus. When I finally submitted the assignment, relief flooding through me, I stood up to stretch and really looked around the apartment. It was a disaster. Not just normal lived-in mess, actual filth. The kitchen counter was sticky with spills. The sink overflowed with dishes that had been there for at least 3 days. The trash smelled. The living room had clutter everywhere. Someone's takeout containers, discarded mail, random items that belonged in bedrooms. The bathroom situation was even worse. I'd peeked in earlier and immediately retreated. The hallway had visible crumbs and dust bunnies collecting in the corners. My boyfriend came home from his shift at the restaurant, and I watched his shoulders slump when he walked through the door. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly. He looked at me exhausted. "Me neither. We need to talk to them." He nodded slowly. "Okay, but let's do it calmly. No accusations, just a house meeting about establishing a better system." That evening, after everyone was home, my boyfriend knocked on his brother's door. "Hey, can we all talk for a minute? Just about household stuff." They emerged looking slightly wary, and the 4 of us sat in the living room. I'd pushed aside my nervousness and prepared what I wanted to say. Something diplomatic, something that wouldn't put anyone on the defensive. So, I started, keeping my voice friendly and light. "We've all been living together for a while now, and I think we could benefit from a more organized approach to chores. No one's doing anything wrong, it's just that things have gotten a bit chaotic, and I think a rotation system might help everyone." The reaction was immediate and unexpected. The girlfriend's expression hardened. "What do you mean, chaotic?" "Just that with 4 people, there's more mess, and I think if we divide responsibilities, it'll be easier for everyone." "This feels like you're saying we don't clean," his brother said, crossing his arms. My boyfriend jumped in. "No, that's not what we're saying. We're all busy. A system would help all of us remember what needs to be done." "Can you give an example?" the girlfriend asked, her tone sharp. "What exactly do you think we're not doing?" I hesitated. This was exactly what I'd wanted to avoid. Specific accusations. But they were staring at me expectantly, and the tension was thick. "Well," I said carefully, "for instance, the barbecue sauce on the counter from last week. It sat there for 2 days before I cleaned it. With a rotation, whoever's turn it was that day would have handled it right away." "That was barely anything," his brother said defensively. "It was quite a lot, actually. It was dried on and took significant scrubbing." "So you're attacking us," the girlfriend interrupted, her voice rising. "You called this meeting just to attack us." I felt my face flush. "No, I'm not attacking anyone. I'm trying to solve a problem by blaming us for everything." "I didn't blame anyone. I suggested a system." After calling us out specifically, she stood up abruptly. "You know what? Fine. We'll try your system. But this feels really hostile." She left, going to their bedroom and closing the door hard enough to rattle the frame. His brother looked between my boyfriend and me, his expression hurt and angry. "I thought we were all getting along. I didn't realize you were keeping score of every little thing we did wrong." "We're not keeping score," my boyfriend said, but his brother was already standing up, following his girlfriend. We sat there in the living room, stunned. "That went well," I said weakly. My boyfriend rubbed his face. "I don't understand what just happened." Over the next few days, a cold war settled over the apartment. His brother would nod at us but barely speak. The girlfriend ignored us entirely, walking past without acknowledgement. The atmosphere was suffocatingly awkward, but worse than the silence was what happened to our relationship with his brother. Before, he'd been like family to me. We'd joke around, share stories about our days, cook meals together, debate about television shows. Now, he looked at me like I was a stranger, like I'd betrayed him somehow. I tried once to bridge the gap, catching him in the kitchen one morning. "Hey, I really didn't mean for that conversation to come across as attacking anyone," I said gently. He poured his coffee without meeting my eyes. "It's fine. It doesn't feel fine. Look, she was really hurt by what you said. She's been trying really hard and you basically told her she's lazy." "I never said." "That's how it came across." He took his coffee and left. I stood there feeling like the villain in a story I didn't understand. If I'd known that asking someone to scoop a litter box would lead to being called a bully, I might have just held my breath and dealt with the smell. But I didn't know. I still believed somehow that we were all adults who could handle a simple request. The girlfriend's cat, the older tabby Bobby, who'd been living with us since the year before, had his litter box in the laundry room. It was convenient for everyone, tucked in the corner near the washer and dryer, easy to maintain. When she moved in, she'd naturally taken over the care of her pet. It was the one chore she'd explicitly agreed to handle. For the first few months, she did it. Not necessarily daily, but regularly enough that it wasn't a major issue. But after our house meeting, something changed. The litter box went untouched. Day after day, I'd go to the laundry room to switch loads or grab detergent, and the smell would hit me like a physical wall. The box was so full that the poor cat was balancing on the edges, trying to find clean spots. Clumps piled high, urine pooling at the bottom. I felt terrible for the cat, and frankly, I felt terrible for us. The smell was seeping into the hallway, making the entire back section of the apartment unpleasant. I was already scooping 2 litter boxes daily, one for my kitten in our bedroom, and a second one I'd set up in the living room for both cats to share, since I'd noticed the older cat was avoiding his original box. But I drew the line at scooping a third box that was explicitly someone else's responsibility for their pet. After a week of the situation getting progressively worse, I decided I needed to say something. I found her working in their bedroom and knocked on the doorframe. "Hey, can I talk to you for a quick second?" She looked up from her laptop, expression neutral. "Yeah? The litter box in the laundry room hasn't been scooped in about a week, and the smell is getting pretty strong. Would you be able to take care of it today?" I said it as politely as I could. No accusation, no attitude, just a straightforward request. Her face transformed. "Are you serious right now?" Yes, it really needs to be scooped. If it bothers you so much, then you should just do it yourself." I blinked, caught off guard. "It's your cat. I'm already scooping 2 other boxes every single day. I've been busy. It takes 5 minutes. You know what? I don't need this right now. I'm working." She turned back to her laptop, dismissing me. I stood there for a moment, bewildered, then left. I texted my boyfriend about the interaction, and he was equally confused. "That's ridiculous," he replied. "It's literally her only household responsibility." I thought that would be the end of it. Maybe she'd cool off and handle it later. Instead, 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts. Message after message, paragraph after paragraph, filled with accusations and grievances I hadn't known existed. She wrote that I'd been bullying her since she moved in, that I'd been trying to make her look lazy, that I criticized everything she did, that I'd been unwelcoming and hostile from day one. The messages included an itemized list, and I mean truly itemized with numbers, of every perceived slight over the past 6 months. Number 4 on the list was about the time I'd offered them dinner. They'd both been sick with a nasty cold, barely able to get out of bed. My boyfriend and I had made a big pot of soup, and I'd knocked on their door to offer them some, thinking it might be helpful when they weren't feeling well enough to cook. According to her text, this was actually me patronizing them and showing off that I was capable of cooking while they were suffering. She'd felt insulted by the gesture and had been forcing herself to be polite when she thanked me. I read that message 3 times, trying to understand how offering soup to sick people had been interpreted as an attack. The rest of the list was similarly baffling. I'd apparently looked at her judgmentally when she was carrying in takeout bags. I'd sighed loudly when walking past their closed bedroom door. I have allergies and sigh frequently, usually without realizing it. I'd deliberately made noise in the early morning when getting ready for my classes, which started at 8, requiring me to be up by 7, which seemed like a reasonable time in a shared apartment. The final message said, "You have been trying to push me out since I got here. You're threatened by me being here because now you're not the only woman in the apartment. You've been passive-aggressive and controlling, and I'm done pretending I don't see it." I sat on my bed, phone in my shaking hands, completely blindsided. My boyfriend read the messages over my shoulder, his face getting progressively more incredulous. "This is insane," he said finally. "You offered them soup when they were sick, and she thought you were attacking her?" "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "How do I respond to this?" "Don't respond tonight. Let's think about this." But the messages kept coming, now from his brother too, backing up everything his girlfriend had said. I'd apparently been creating a hostile environment and making her feel unwelcome and trying to control the household. The accusation that hurt most was from his brother. "I thought you were better than this. You're not the person I thought you were." This was someone I'd lived with peacefully for 2 years, someone I'd considered a close friend. And now he was looking at the past 6 months through a completely different lens, reinterpreting every interaction as evidence of my malicious intent. I didn't sleep that night. 3 weeks after the text message onslaught, my boyfriend's grandfather passed away. He'd been sick for a while. Everyone knew it was coming, but it still hit the family hard. The funeral was scheduled for a Saturday morning, about 2 hours away from our city. The grandfather had been a pillar of the family, beloved by all his grandchildren, and the service was expected to be large and emotional. My boyfriend was devastated. He'd been close to his grandfather, visiting him regularly in the hospital during his final months. The night we got the news, he cried in my arms, grieving not just the loss, but the end of an era for his family. His brother was equally affected. I could hear him on the phone with family members, voice thick with sadness, making arrangements. Despite everything that had happened between us, I assumed we'd all attend the funeral together. This was family. This transcended roommate drama. Surely loss and grief were bigger than dirty dishes and litter boxes. The Wednesday before the funeral, my boyfriend approached his brother. "So, we're planning to leave Friday night and stay at Mom's house, then drive to the service together Saturday morning. Does that work for you guys?" His brother's expression shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, we're not going." My boyfriend stared at him. "What?" "We decided not to attend." "Why would you?" He stopped, realization dawning. "This is about her, isn't it?" "Don't start. You're seriously skipping Grandpa's funeral because you can't stand being in a car with my girlfriend for 2 hours?" His brother's face flushed. "She created this situation. Our grandfather died. This isn't about apartment drama." "Everything is about the situation situation she's created. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when she's made our lives miserable. I was in our bedroom, but I could hear every word through the thin walls. I felt physically sick. "You're being ridiculous," my boyfriend said, his voice shaking with anger. "Grandpa would be so disappointed in you. Don't put this on me. She's the one who started all of this with her accusations and her rules and her constant criticism. She asked you to clean up after yourself. She attacked us. She offered you soup when you were sick and you decided it was an insult. Do you hear how insane that sounds?" The argument escalated, shouting, accusations flying both directions, years of brotherhood straining under the weight of 6 months of miscommunication and resentment. Eventually, it ended with his brother slamming his bedroom door, and my boyfriend coming into our room looking pale and shaken. "I can't believe him," he said. I was crying. "This is my fault." "No, this is his choice. He's choosing his girlfriend's grudge over our grandfather's funeral. That's on him." But I couldn't shake the guilt. A family member had died, and the family was fracturing, and somehow I was at the center of it. We went to the funeral without them. It was beautiful and sad, full of stories about a man who'd lived a full life, surrounded by people who loved him. But there was a noticeable absence. People asked where my boyfriend's brother was. The family whispered. I felt like I had a scarlet letter pinned to my chest. When we returned to the apartment Sunday evening, exhausted and emotionally drained, we found a note on the kitchen table. "We've decided to move out. The environment here has become abusive and toxic, and we can't continue living like this. We'll be gone by Tuesday. We'll discuss rent and bills later." Abusive. The word hit like a slap. I'd asked them to clean. I'd requested they scoop a litter box. I'd suggested a chore rotation. And somehow I was abusive. My boyfriend crumpled the note in his fist. "This is unbelievable." They were true to their word. Monday evening, they started packing. They didn't speak to us, didn't explain, didn't try to have any final conversation. They moved around the apartment like ghosts, boxing up their belongings in grim silence. Tuesday afternoon, they loaded everything into a moving truck. As they carried the last boxes down the stairs, they passed us in the hallway. My boyfriend's brother looked at him, just for a moment, and I saw something complicated in that look. Hurt, anger, regret, stubbornness. But he didn't speak. They climbed into the truck. As they drove away, the girlfriend rolled down her window and flipped us off, a gesture so juvenile and spiteful that I almost laughed through my shock. Then they were gone. The apartment felt cavernous in their absence, half empty, echoey, and we were stuck with the full rent, an amount we couldn't afford on our student budgets. We scrambled to figure out logistics, picking up extra shifts, eating ramen, stressed to our breaking points. They'd blocked us on everything: phone, social media, email, no discussion about bills, no forwarding address for their share of utilities, nothing. They'd simply vanished, leaving us to deal with the financial fallout. "Can we take them to small claims court?" I asked, researching tenant law late one night. "Probably," my boyfriend said, "but it would destroy what's left of my family relationships. My brother would never forgive me." "He's not forgiving you now anyway." "We didn't sue, we just struggled." And I tried to convince myself that the worst was over. I was wrong. November came and went in a haze of stress and exhaustion. We found a new roommate, a quiet graduate student who kept to himself and blessedly cleaned up after himself without being asked. The apartment slowly felt like ours again. But the family situation was deteriorating. My boyfriend's family had a tradition stretching back decades. Every Christmas, everyone gathered at a rented cabin in the mountains. Grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, siblings, cousins, partners. Everyone came. It was sacred. The same cabin, the same week, the same rituals, baking cookies on Christmas Eve, the massive gift exchange, the chaotic breakfast where too many people tried to use one kitchen, the long winter walks through the forest. My boyfriend had been going since he was a baby. His brother, too. They had photos spanning 25 years of Christmas mornings in that cabin, gap-toothed smiles, awkward teenage phases, the evolution from children to adults, all documented against the same stone fireplace. This was supposed to be my third year attending. The first year, I'd been nervous, meeting the extended family all at once. But they'd welcomed me warmly, and I'd fallen in love with the tradition. Last year, I'd helped his mother with Christmas dinner and stayed up late playing board games with his cousins. I'd felt like part of the family. Now that family was imploding. It started with a message in the family group chat in early November. My boyfriend showed me his phone, and I read the unfolding disaster with growing dread. His brother had written, "We need to discuss Christmas plans. Given the current situation, we're not comfortable attending if certain people will be there." Certain people, he meant me. His mother responded first. "Can we please talk about this as a family? I don't want drama affecting our tradition." But the floodgates had opened. His brother's girlfriend joined the chat, apparently unblocked just for this purpose, and wrote a lengthy message detailing their grievances. It was a public version of the text she'd sent me months ago, presented to the entire family as fact. I was controlling. I was hostile. I'd created an abusive living environment. They'd had to flee for their mental health. My boyfriend started typing a response, fingers jabbing at his phone, but I put my hand over his. "Don't," I said quietly. "Not in the group chat. This will just get worse." He called his mother instead, and I listened to his side of the conversation, my stomach twisting into knots. She didn't do any of that. No, we asked them to help with basic cleaning. Mom, they skipped Grandpa's funeral to avoid being in the same car with us. I know it sounds one-sided, but I was there for all of it. I'm not choosing her over family. I'm defending the truth. When he hung up, he looked defeated. "What did she say?" I asked. "She wants everyone to come to Christmas. She thinks we can all be adults about it. She doesn't understand why this is such a big deal." But it was a big deal. Because his brother and girlfriend had given an ultimatum. They wouldn't attend if we were there. And we'd given our own position. We weren't backing down from a family tradition because of lies and manipulation. The family was being forced to choose sides. Over the next 3 weeks, the family group chat became a war zone. I wasn't in it, thank God. But my boyfriend would show me updates, each one worse than the last. His youngest sister sided with us. "I lived with them before. I know what they're like. I believe you." His middle sister sided with his brother. "We need to prioritize family healing. Maybe it's best if everyone takes a year off from Christmas to cool down." His cousins were divided. Some had heard his brother's version of events first and believed it. Others knew us better and were skeptical of the accusations. His parents were trying desperately to remain neutral, which somehow made it worse. They wanted everyone to come, everyone to get along, everyone to pretend nothing had happened. "We can put you in different cabins," his mother suggested. "The rental company has a second small cabin on the property. You wouldn't even have to see each other." But his brother refused. My presence anywhere on the property was unacceptable. His father tried a different approach. "Why don't you both just apologize to each other and move forward?" My boyfriend lost his temper at that. "Apologize for what? For asking them to clean? For requesting basic respect in our own home?" I'm sure everyone made mistakes. She offered them soup, Dad. She offered them soup when they were sick, and they decided it was an attack. What exactly should she apologize for? The family debate raged on, sides solidified. The tradition that had lasted decades was crumbling, and everyone agreed on one thing. It was my fault. Even people who believed our version of events blamed me for bringing it up in the first place. "You should have just let it go," one of his aunts said. "It was only a few months. They would have moved out eventually." Was it worth destroying the family over dirty dishes? My boyfriend defended me fiercely, but I could see the toll it was taking. His relationship with his brother, once one of the most important in his life, was destroyed. His family was fractured. The stress was affecting his grades, his work, his health. And I was the common denominator in all of it. Early December, the family made a decision. Christmas was canceled. Not postponed, not relocated, canceled. The cabin reservation was released. The gift exchange was called off. Everyone would spend Christmas separately for the first time in 25 years. My boyfriend's mother called him, crying. "I never thought I'd see this day. I thought we'd always have Christmas together. I thought the grandchildren would bring their children and we'd continue the tradition forever." After he hung up, he sat on our couch staring at nothing. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "It's not your fault. Everyone thinks it is. Everyone is wrong." But their conviction didn't make me feel less guilty. A few days later, I was scrolling through social media, something I'd been avoiding, but morbid curiosity got the better of me, and found that his brother's girlfriend had posted a long public essay about escaping toxicity and choosing peace. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone who knew the situation would know exactly who she was talking about. The post described a living situation where she'd been gaslit and emotionally abused by a controlling roommate who criticized her every move and made her feel unwelcome in her own home. The comments were full of support. "You're so brave for leaving. You deserve better. I'm so sorry you went through that." A few people who knew me tried to offer alternative perspectives in the comments, but they were drowned out. The narrative was set. I was the villain. I showed my boyfriend, and he immediately started typing a response, but I stopped him again. "Don't," I said. "It'll just make it worse. Let people think what they want. I can't just let her lie about you publicly. If you respond, it becomes a public fight. Your family will see it. It'll cause more damage." He knew I was right, but I could see how much it cost him to stay silent. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything that had happened, replaying interactions, wondering what I could have done differently. Should I have just cleaned up after them forever? Should I have never adopted my kitten? Should I have moved out when the tension started, removing myself from the equation? But then I'd remember the dried barbecue sauce, the overflowing litter box, the messages calling me abusive for offering soup, and I'd feel angry all over again. Angry at the injustice of it, angry at being painted as a monster for having basic boundaries, angry at losing people I cared about over something so absurd. The worst part was the doubt, that insidious voice that whispered, maybe they're right. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe you did make them feel unwelcome. Maybe you are the problem. My boyfriend seemed to sense my spiral. Hey, he said softly in the darkness. None of this is your fault. You asked people to be responsible adults. That's not abuse, that's not control, that's just being a good roommate and a good person. Then why does everyone think I'm the villain? Because my brother's girlfriend is a good storyteller and people believe the first version they hear? And because it's easier to blame one person than to acknowledge that the situation was complicated. Your family Christmas is destroyed because of me. My family Christmas is destroyed because my brother chose to prioritize his girlfriend's ego over his family. Because my parents couldn't set boundaries. Because everyone wanted a simple story with a clear villain, and you were convenient. I wanted to believe him. Some days I did. Other days, I was drowning in guilt. It's been 6 months since they moved out. 4 months since Christmas was canceled. My boyfriend and I are still together. Stronger in some ways. We survived something that could have broken us, and we came through it united. But there are scars. He talks to his parents, but the conversations are strained. He hasn't spoken to his brother at all. At family gatherings he attends, birthday parties, the occasional Sunday dinner, his brother and girlfriend don't show up if they know we'll be there. The family has fractured into camps that don't mix. His younger sister still talks to both of them, trying to be a bridge, but she's told us that his brother is convinced we destroyed his relationship, and that his girlfriend is still telling people I was abusive to her. They've apparently built an entire friend group around the narrative of their escape from toxicity, bonding with others over their shared trauma story. Meanwhile, I'm just living my life, going to classes, working my job, taking care of my cat, who is now a year old and has never destroyed anything significant. Coming home to an apartment that stays clean because our new roommate is respectful and responsible. But I can't escape the question, did I ruin Christmas? Not just the holiday itself, but the tradition, the family unity, the relationships that are now broken, possibly irreparably. My therapist, yes, I started seeing a therapist after all this, says I'm taking on responsibility for other people's choices. She points out that I didn't force his brother to skip the funeral. I didn't force him to give the Christmas ultimatum. I didn't force the family to cancel instead of finding a compromise. You set a boundary, she says. You asked people to contribute to a shared space. Their reaction to that boundary was their choice. But intentions don't erase consequences. Even if I didn't mean for any of this to happen, it happened. The domino effect is real. I knocked over the first piece when I called that house meeting, and everything else fell from there. My boyfriend insists I'm not to blame. His younger sister agrees. A few friends who know the whole story are firmly on my side, but there are dozens of people, his family, their friends, mutual acquaintances, who believe a different version of events, who believe I'm controlling, hostile, and abusive. I wonder sometimes what I should have done differently. Should I have waited longer before addressing the chores? Should I have phrased things more carefully? Should I have just accepted that I'd be doing most of the housework and swallowed my resentment? But then I think about living like that. In an environment where I couldn't voice concerns, where setting boundaries was seen as aggression, where offering help was interpreted as an insult. That's not sustainable. That's not healthy. Yet here we are. His family tradition is gone. His relationship with his brother is destroyed. I'm branded as a villain in the eyes of people I'll probably never see again, but who will carry that opinion of me forever. Last week, his mother called and asked if we'd reconsider attending Christmas this year. She wants to try again, to bring everyone together, to heal the family, to restore the tradition. I'll talk to your brother, she said. I'll ask them to put aside their feelings for 1 week, for the family. My boyfriend looked at me after relaying the conversation. What do you think? I thought about sitting in a cabin with people who believe I'm abusive, making small talk with his brother who won't look at me, pretending everything is fine while his girlfriend tells the cousins her version of events in hushed corners, watching everyone walk on eggshells, trying desperately not to acknowledge the massive elephant in every room. I don't know if I can do that, I admitted. Then we won't go. But then it's my fault again. I'm the one keeping you from your family. No, the situation is keeping us from family, not you specifically. But is there a difference? If I wasn't in the picture, he could go. His brother would attend. The tradition could continue. My existence is the obstacle. Maybe that's what I should do. Remove myself from the equation. Not break up with my boyfriend, I love him, and this isn't his fault either. But step back from his family completely. Don't attend gatherings, don't be part of holidays. Let them have their traditions without the complication of my presence. But my boyfriend won't hear of it. You're my family too, he says. If they can't accept you, then I don't need to be there. It's sweet, it's loyal, and it's heartbreaking, because I know what I've cost him. The brother he was close to, the easy relationship with his parents, the Christmas tradition he loved, the family unity he grew up with, all because I asked someone to clean up barbecue sauce. When I lay it out like that, it sounds absurd, ridiculous. Surely the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Surely I'm not actually a terrible person for having basic expectations of shared living. But the consequences are real, regardless of whether they're proportional. The family Christmas is gone, the relationships are damaged, the story has spread through their social circles. I'm the girl who ruined everything. So I'm asking now, not just rhetorically, but genuinely, looking for perspective I might have missed. Did I destroy a family's Christmas over dirty dishes? Was I wrong to call that house meeting? Should I have just kept my mouth shut and dealt with the mess? Was asking someone to scoop their cat's litter box really so unreasonable that it justified this entire disaster? Or is this one of those situations where I did everything reasonably, but the reaction was so disproportionate that I got blamed anyway? Where I was simply convenient scapegoat for deeper family dysfunction? I don't know anymore. I've lost all objectivity. Every perspective I hear is colored by which side of the story they heard first. My boyfriend tells me daily that I did nothing wrong. That I was patient and kind far longer than most people would have been. That his brother and girlfriend were the unreasonable ones, taking advantage of us and then villainizing us when we pushed back. That the family's inability to handle conflict isn't my fault. I want to believe him. Most days I almost do. But then I remember that cabin, the one I've seen in countless family photos, full of laughter and love and tradition. And I know it's sitting empty this Christmas. Empty because of a chain of events that started with me calling a house meeting about chores. I can draw a direct line from that meeting to the canceled Christmas. My action, however reasonable it seemed at the time, led here. That's just fact. So what's the verdict? Did I ruin Christmas? Or was Christmas already fragile, built on a family that couldn't handle conflict, held together by avoidance rather than genuine resolution, and I was simply the stress test that revealed the cracks? I genuinely don't know. What I do know is this. I offered someone soup when they were sick, and somehow I became the villain of their story. I asked someone to clean up after themselves, and I was called abusive. I set boundaries in my own home, and I was accused of creating a toxic environment. And now a 25-year family tradition is gone. If that makes me the villain, then I don't know how to be anything else. Because I can't imagine what I should have done differently that wouldn't have required me to just accept being treated poorly in my own home. To accept being taken advantage of. To accept that my comfort and boundaries mattered less than avoiding conflict. Maybe that's what being a good person means sometimes. Swallowing your own needs for the greater good. Letting things slide. Keeping the peace at your own expense. Or maybe that's just a recipe for resentment and misery. I don't have the answer. I'm still living in the question, trying to figure out if I'm the person in the right who got unfairly blamed, or if I'm actually the problem and just can't see it. All I know for certain is that this Christmas, that cabin will be empty. And whether it's fair or not, whether I was right or wrong, whether I was reasonable or unreasonable, I'm the reason why. So I'm asking you genuinely, did I ruin Christmas? Or did Christmas ruin itself and I just happened to be there when it fell apart? I still don't know. Maybe I never will.